Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tanim Graun, Papua New Guinea's Q&A series to encourage dialogue, debate, and engagement on our development challenges and opportunities, and how we as citizens can help shape our nation's future. My name is Alan Bird, and I'll be your host this afternoon. This afternoon's discussion will be centered around law and order, heavy bilong hosite, whose responsibility is it, and how it affects us all. It is an important subject and something that I'm sure is close to all of you and something which you'd be concerned about. Joining us today, we're very fortunate to have David Conn from the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce, but he may as well represent the Papua New Guinea Chamber of Commerce. Commander Kalaut from Madang. Actually, you'd be our first outside Port Moresby panelist, so you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Wallace Yakam, who looks after the Consultative Implementation Monitoring Council. Yes. Assistant Commissioner Alan Scott, representing the Australian Federal Police, welcome.
Thank you.
And of course, the ever popular Martin Namarong. Thank you, Martin. I want to stress at the outset that we did try to get some more females on the panel, but unfortunately, the ones that we were hoping to get were on leave. So please excuse us on that. With that in mind, let's talk about it. Just today, funnily enough, and we didn't plan this, you look at the Post Courier and we've got a church murder. So it's probably timely that we're talking about a crime in Papua New Guinea, law and order. Now, I've got some statistics here, and I want to go to the panel. But before I do, we have some stats from the World Bank 2014 report that says that in Papua New Guinea, businesses lose on average about 89,000 kina to crime. We have things like 700 people are murdered in our country on an annual basis, and that number is increasing. Now, in every literature you read, it talks about crime hampering our development. If you look at government priorities, I think it's number 4 behind education, health, and infrastructure. Number 4, you have law and order. So obviously the government is committing a lot of resources to it, but it's still increasing in terms of the statistics. So I'm going to start with you, David.
From a business community point of view, we tend to get a thick end of the stick here. I mean, it's if there were more jobs, it's a more holistic approach. If there's more jobs, people in less trouble. But if you don't have law and order, you're not going to get more business and you're not going to get more jobs. I mean, the figures that Alan raises on the cost to our businesses, I mean, that's one level. But last week we were discussing another level, the cost to our business of domestic violence. And every week, every day, my businesses face the fact that the receptionist isn't there, or that her husband bashed her up the night before she doesn't come to work. We spend valuable business time trying to fix those issues. So I mean, it's this catch-22 situation that we'll produce the jobs if the law and order is there, and I'm sure we're going to get into some pretty juicy conversation on the law and order issues in Papua New Guinea. But as I say, it's a catch-22 situation. If you want to, it's bad enough in Port Moresby, in Lae, in the major towns, but you even think about going to start a business in Malalawa, Nuku, or Bundi, for goodness sake. I mean, you're really up against it. You're a shag on a rock out there.
We can all see why you represent the business community, and you do a very good job. Thank you, David. Wallace, the impact on the community. Now, we've just heard from business on community. With your work with the CAMC, what's the impact like?
The general situation is that, law enforcement is not there. And presence of police or people who are supposed to be enforcing law, the confidence and trust is not there. So people, they have their own way of looking after themselves, things like that at the community level. And in particular, family and sexual violence. David has just mentioned that some of the secretaries or receptionists or even the female employees, they're based up by their husbands, they don't come to work, and that's a cost of business in the community. So that's a typical example of what happens in terms of domestic violence. And it's a development issue in PNG. And a lot of people are trying to address that in different ways. But at the community level, the major issue that we see is lack of trust in the law enforcers. So that's something that I would stress here.
Well, we have some law enforcers on the panel. Commander Kalat, I think you're on.
The police, they are entrusted by the community to be police officers because they have these police powers when they swore on oath to be police men and women to serve the people of Papua New Guinea. And we derive these powers from our people, and we must go back to the people, and they will work with us and we work with them so that we have a peaceful community.
Thank you, Commander. That's a very good point. Martin, impact on the community.
What we need to understand as a country, as communities, are the dynamics that drive all these law and order issues, whether it's the cultural background of people, the type of society that is there, in terms of what Commander Kalaut has highlighted about respect, that also comes back to how the cultural relations between people are, social relations between people are. Understanding social dynamics, I think, is very important. And I think what the law enforcement people need to contribute as well is in terms of a greater understanding of the societies that they are dealing with, because I think the police force needs to be culturally sensitized to the different local communities. You know, someone who's from East New Britain may not necessarily know how to operate in a Highlands community. And so there are these cultural barriers. Even though we're all Papua New Guineans, we're all culturally different. And it's something really, I think, about understanding the sociology of crime in Papua New Guinea that will really help us to look at the dynamics of crime in Papua New Guinea.
Okay, well, talking about culture, Assistant Commissioner, you come from a different culture. You're here helping us. You've been here a while.
That's right.
What are your views?
The government of Papua New Guinea invited us to come because there were issues, and an aid program is designed to address fundamental issues in the way in which it delivers its package. So we acknowledge that there were issues here before we arrived, and after 18 months, it's very clear that the points that Wallace was raising earlier about that tension between the community and the police and a breakdown of the trust is really at the heart of it. And I've seen that in all of the places that I've been to. There isn't that confidence in the police that really should be there because the police serve the community. This is a fundamental principle. In fact, the father of modern policing, Sir Robert Peel, said these words many, many years ago: the police are the community and the community are the police. And those words were uttered in 1829 when the first modern police force was formed. And it has not changed. That principle is as relevant today as it was then. But I think there's been some shifting here in Papua New Guinea and a lack of connection to the community and the sociology that Martin mentioned. There isn't a separateness, or there shouldn't be a separateness between the community and the police. They are together in their work and the task of law and order. As the police commander said, it is a community responsibility. The police have some authority and some powers and some training to go with that, but it is a togetherness, not a separateness.
That's excellent. That's really excellent. Now, on the point you made, and I want to stress this for our audience because this leads appropriately into our talk out segment, and that's you gave a definition about what police is all about, and you said community is the police, and police is the community, and that is absolutely appropriate because we're now going to look at an initiative that Commander Clout and his team in Madang, they've developed a community policing program that is being practiced out there. So we're going to be watching mostly Senior Constable Yawing, who is also a good friend of mine from Madang, and his community out at Megia.
Medan is like any other province in Papua New Guinea. We do have our law and order issues in the province. Mainly we have a lot of unemployed population, especially of our young population. They're involved in a lot of criminal activities in and around the town and within the districts. We experience crimes like robberies, violent crimes like assaults, even rapes, and also people engaging themselves in illicit activities like the use of illicit drugs, homebrew, and marijuana. It's a concern in the province at the moment, but we are doing our best to try and deal with some of these issues. But I think the law and order situation in Medan is at a manageable level. Relationship is very, very important that we need to keep between the stakeholders, like police and the stakeholders and the community, so that makes our job very easy. And for police, we act on information. And if we have good information, we can do a good job.
Community policing kind of some policy work one time community. You look him long one of the police all talk police and community working together in partnership. But also me start as a policeman for 22 years now. By seeing it, work that way too much. So time me come stop here, only sali me come 2011, me come stop here. The time me stop here, me look at there is much more needed to go into community policing. So me been start one time awareness, making law and order awareness. I believe me believe suppose me educating all man about law. It's at least all man marry Papua New Guinea must have law. What is law? All must have long one more legal law country make him long and all must understand this law. Now time all understand all yet by trying best long avoid him breaking this law. But all saving this law na you may try law enforcing this law that's all. How about be him this law way all na save? So sample law time talk law man and me nupla something law man. Only no saving this law like wife bashing or rape in the house, man yet married him rape him all they don't know. But time you may educate him or start looking some lawyer. So they start to respect there. All married law. Even all married too now looks ours and all got rights to Papa no can force him all na talk so me buy me finish na like blomilo make him. So that's sample something we only line him.
Me also manpla marry inside the community. Me like talk out long. When him something me plus I look him long all police before. Me plus I look all police car. Me plus I start one time pret na. Me plus I also all police only can lo bagrapi me plus. Na time this la policing community policing start inside the community. Me play film also all policy work one time me play. Me play no got pret. Time heavy come up inside long family. Me play easy tasol talk out the police long helping me play.
Me play police me play sawe looking nothing also because me play wear him this la uniform. Me play different long all man. We are different, but people must we are part of the community. Because of the community, we are here. If they are not there, then we can't be here. You may interact one time. You may all get a man marry, you may stop this ground, and you may stop because of one another. So one can walk, you may make him long on. It's because of other people that we are here. So we have to treat everybody with respect. Suppose we walk long, teaching man long, be him law, okay? Passing long here, I must start long lidema. My attitude, my personal behaviors. Na me talk lo naraplaman, then I'm by respect. Like before me man bless park, me man bless smoke, me one bless rough policeman. The whole time me sit down for 22 years, me sit down na me look back again on life lo me look say my job is to teach that person lo change. Na suppose me stop him how me change him. For example, suppose misa with ring yet na mito kimilo no can spark. But you spark or no what? But you still spark yet. Because misa with ring, so you don't have to arm talk blumi.
Lo view blomi in la community, mi looking all youths, fellow youths blomi in la community. Mi looking passing blong all, staff blong all, silip kira blol in la community am alright. Plenty all good law tok go back and lo good law praise go back and lo Mr. Yawing. Mi blo youth to mi bla pili mosem.
Thank you, true, Mr. Yahweh. Lo good pala wake below you. Lo ron plenty time lo this pala highway. Man meri looking you, man meri olisave. You come in olo bagarapin. You come below helping. Was lo all get a man meri lo megar lo here lo this pala road. One happy walk. Thank you, Truna. God bless you.
What a wonderful change. Here you have police building trust, again, re-engaging with the community.
With all due respect to the local police and that, I mean, they have got to answer to Papua New Guinea. I mean, I've been here 36 years. Where did they suddenly lose that respect of the community? All these issues of sorcery, taking a bush knife to deal with an issue and everything. Many people in the audience here would know that 40 years ago that didn't happen. So where did we lose our way? And the police of Papua New Guinea, I'm afraid, have to take a lot of the blame for that. I mean, the senior constable there, saying, look, I have had a life change. If I want to tell people not to drink, I don't drink. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, all I would say to him is, look, mate, have a drink, but do it moderately and don't misbehave, and everyone can. That's a good example to follow. But we've just become unaccountable, and I mean, even me, I'm unaccountable. I mean, what's the speed limit in the city? 60 in the city, 85 on the highway. Geez, I'll do 120 come across the freeway.
Well, maybe we should arrest you then.
Well, you got to catch me first. And I jump at my car when I've had too much to drink, and that is wrong. But we, he's got to go through a bit of a change, and I'm afraid it's not just the police; it's all the disciplined forces. Every one of them needs to be gutted like a fish, gutted like a fish, and the bad stuff taken out, the head cut off in many cases, and get back to some basics. Because I don't respect the police force of Papua New Guinea.
Thank you.
Hard words. Obviously, you're doing things differently in Medan. You've realized that the way you used to do policing isn't working, so you've gone off on a different track. And obviously, from what we see there, your officers, some of your constables, the rank and file is beginning to change its approach.
When you look at police, we talk about police brutality and all this. Yes, maybe on the other side of the coin, there is maybe another reason. We look at the action and reaction principle, and we see sometimes they react because of action, but maybe over a period of time. But I'm not going to justify whatever the illegal things that's being committed by few rogue officers. If it is blatant, well, it's wrong against the law.
Yeah, and you can't justify it that way. As Alan said, it comes down to the training of the officer. Yeah. A policeman is going to take a lot of crap in his life. If he reacts violently every time, he's not fit to be a policeman. He has to be trained to cop that. If he can't take the heat, he stays out of the kitchen.
Just this point, and I want to stress to the viewers out there, you're watching Tanim Graun, and we're talking law and order. Particularly for those of you in Port Moresby, if you're running the orange light and the red light, you are precisely, and I can see the audience smiling, because you try and stop at one of these, when the light turns amber, and the guy behind you, even the lady behind you, is likely to ram the backside of your car. So if you're one of those people, you are the non-compliant population. Let's go to an audience question. Willie Kerenga, if you're ready, can we have your question, please?
How is the private sector engaging with the community and police to help reduce crime in the community. For example, through doing things like youth training, sponsoring sport and recreational programs, or providing fuel for police.
We're a wee bit over, although many of our businesses do support the average sports team. But I can speak with some authority from the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce point of view that we actively, and we are actively engaging at this very minute with youth of Port Moresby through the Guinea-Guada Business Development Foundation. Last year, if you want to come to my office, you'll see 6 buses sitting outside any afternoon. They leave the premises every day. They go out, they do early childhood, they do life skills, they do future skills, they do financial skills. In the toughest areas of Port Moresby, they're in all of the settlements today. They're probably just returning now. We also operate in Ley. In Moresby last year, the figures say that we touched with our programs, which then follow on to vocational skills training and a link to the formal sector through on-job training. We touched 19,000 kids. In Ley, we normally, in Moresby, we expect a couple of hundred people to turn up to a program. In Ley, it's 500, 600. And that says a lot, that there's a huge thirst out there. And yes, you're right, the population is non-compliant. But I can tell you from experience in Moresby, there's an awful lot of young people that are trying to be compliant. They're trying to be employable. They're trying to give themselves a chance. And I see it at every graduation. I say, congratulations, you got off your backside, you're trying to do something.
There are people who go and get some sort of education, but they're not skilled for the job, so they don't get the jobs. The other thing is people are too aspirational.
But are the jobs there?
I think there are opportunities out there for a lot of people.
Say in Port Moresby, how many?
If I reflect back when I was selling buai, there was nothing happening. Just for 2 years.
That's a job.
Yeah, I mean, I have no regrets doing that. I don't pay taxes.
Good on you, mate.
The economy has changed a lot post the LNG economy. I think there are a lot more opportunities for young Papua New Guineans out there. It's just people having an open mind, maybe getting the T-boy job or the gardener. Like I spoke to someone who is one of the biggest gold buyers in this country, and he's like, people don't ask him, can I come and be the T-boy or something in the organization? All they want is, can I get this executive job with the car and the housing and all that. So I think a lot of young Papuanians are too aspirational for their own good.
I think also one thing, Martin, is that this idea of getting a job. We're never going to get everyone a job. We train a kid to weld. We train a kid to body panel beat a car or whatever. And then we try and give them some business skill to go out and use that skill. We are now moving on to what we call community enterprise groups, because it's a big ask for a kid to suddenly say, I'm going to become a backyard welder. So we put 3 or 4 of them together and say, you give yourself some support, a bit of peer pressure so that you don't make 100 kina and go out and spend it on drink.
I think, again, like I said, it reflects back on how those of us in positions of influence understand the dynamics of society and where we can see opportunities for our people and emerging risks as well, and then balance the two out to create a much more secure community.
Thank you, Martin. Now, you're watching Tanim Graun. Our subject for today, law and order, and heavy belong Hussain. Before we go to the next talk out, I just want to say for the record, my first job, I was on a buai seller. I used to change tires at Bridgestone. Let's watch the next talk out.
My name's Dari Toka Jr. I'm the I'm uncle of the one of the deceased who was a victim of the incident on the 23rd of January at Hanobata village. It was a very sad day for the Motu Koitabu people, specifically Hanobata. An incident that could have been controlled by certain mandated leaders at the time. I think the public's aware of, there's been enough publicity on the incident of what happened on the day was in enforcement for the betel nut ban, where the unit came in to move the market. The reaction from the boys in the village, purely because their mothers and sisters and daughters or children were being attacked at the same time. And hence the reason of how they responded or reacted to the police that were here. A lot of people here, whether they're young or old, were capable of actually sitting down amongst a group of people and discussing a way forward, a strategy. So not being a bunch of savages and running through the city and throwing rocks at police vehicles. We did not see that was the way forward. So the point of the roadblock, we understood that the bypass and also parts of the road that go all the way to certain services, we knew that if we shut them down, the city will eventually respond. And the city, what I mean by the city is, the certain business houses, which will then lead to, certain offices in government to respond, and, ultimately the Prime Minister to respond. So I think we underestimated the actual power of the roadblock. We anticipated over a week before we could feel the effects of the roadblock, but it happened within 2 days. And I think we realized that the city is very vulnerable in a situation like this. There's been much discussion that the purpose of the reason for the attack is based around the betel nut ban. I for one have supported the betel nut ban from the beginning, but I think there just needed to be, personally, there needed to be certain guidelines around it. Maybe there wasn't enough consultation with stakeholders throughout the city before it was implemented, and it clearly shows. I think there have been enough indicators that there was not proper consultation before it was enforced. So I think it needs to go back to the drawing board and discussed again. I mean, there's a push for it for now, for the betel nut ban to be closed altogether. I see the benefits of it. I come from a health background as well, so I see the benefits. But just it needs to be reviewed before it moves forward.
Obviously, not only the situation in Hanobata recently, we know of many others. We read about the one in Leh with the young mother who was unfortunately shot in the back of the head, and there's many more. What do we need to do? Aside from community policing, what does the police need to do? And we have two very senior officers here.
I'll have a go at that. And we can train lots and lots of officers, but there are fundamental cultural shifts that are required, I think, to effectively close that gap. Community policing will be one of the strategies that will be at the forefront of how to do that, because if you don't bring the police and the community closer together, we will see other examples of that tension arising. And community policing is a strategy that's tested around the world. It is in place in many other countries, and it's also here and it's working here, as we've seen from the examples in Madang. And if that principle can be more widely applied and we can bring those parties closer together so that they understand more about what's going on, and understand that it won't work unless there's this togetherness happening and an understanding of what the other side of the equation is feeling and experiencing and what the role of the police actually is in all of this.
The irony of that Hanabada situation is the very first police unit was summoned by the people. The people at the market called the police. So, you know, they said, well, who's going to solve this problem? Our police will solve the problem.
Yes.
And they called it. It was the consequent behaviour of the other units who joined. But there's hope there. There's hope that the people did actually call the police.
Yes.
Let's move on now to another audience question. Robert Airy from the National AIDS Council.
What is being done to assist victims of crime? And are there any specific community policing or programs in place?
And I think that's a very important question at this time. Are we doing anything about the victims of crime? Are we aware of any programs? Is there counseling? What are we doing?
For the police, the Medang experience, we have the Family and Sexual Violence Unit, and we partner with the Council of Women, and there are other NGOs that are operating, of which they are trained specialists to deal with, victims. For the police, we may lack certain skills and knowledge to deal with victims of crimes, because after they come to us, we deal with them. We have to refer it to another specialist body so that they can provide that specialist sort of service to the victim. And maybe in future the constabulary might have some trained officers in that regard, or alternatively the constabulary can employ some specialists in that area to provide that service, or we leave it to the other organization to take it on from there, like the community development, the welfare. They can take it on from there, because it comes through that process. Once we deal with it, we give it to another entity to deal with it.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll close the discussion on this particular matter and we'll move to a talk out, because I think we're running out of time. Let's have a look at this one, and this is to do with the village court.
We've got 8 districts. We've got 107 village courts scattered all throughout the province. Out of the 1,500 village court officials, we've got 139 all-Mary magistrate, which 107 all magistrate Mary Mebla Makimol. Okay, apart from that, you got some all village court clerks, some peace officer, all this stuff. Provincial government, it's assist plenty law side the village court. Mainly, funding plenty all some legal activities. Time law and justice sector program. First phase bangami wind down. Provincial government come in legally law time assist him all magistrates law put him all training. Funding all monitoring evaluation programs law village courts. That's look law. All our administrative support law, empowering work law village courts.
Me no school. Me and my mama place nothing. Me stop. Kabifa Women's Association. Only give me president. Work me acting lo here stop. Lo community blow me lo look at flower na look at all marina. All this la work blow me. So work blow me lo this la. Me good plan. So government now only looking work for me. Now only kissing me. One time only talk was by God don't training blow my Mary back plenty old man also step inside the village court. Now also like him all month as all now also help him all Mary now solution. I wara the village court now also go outside so now I'm training all Mary too now all by stop now all by second court blow Mary too. So by me flat training one Mary lo one house line. By me flat call him all come. Me training, me come back, me stop, me help him all in 3 years me work. Now stop. Okay, 2007. Me play first play Mary, me play 16 play Mary, but me play come up magistrate block Goroka. Now me play stop now. Me play training,
Okay, me apply, I graduate, me apply a certificate, me apply like I'm magistrate. First, only giving me a deputy chairman, na mixing deputy chairperson. Okay, resist come can, na me apply resist, na me kissing back position below me can. So now, me come up deputy chairperson, like a before village court. Me got 5 plus peace officer, 6 plus magistrate, including clerk below me come inside. Now me play 12 plus officers when me play lookout in Kabifa. Work below peace officer, below go check him arrest him man outside, only travel man only na below come look court. Me play silent peace officer lo go na kisent le man travel man must come look court. Or when something in damage lo garden, or kind me play silent mo go na to go check in na kis report come lo here. Work below all. Okay, work below clerk. Lo kisim all minutes below court below me play. Na by table working summons, work report below court below me play. I work below all magistrate. Below sit down na harim court. All maki me below sem shaman na deputy. Also look out in work and table all this line 12 line. Yeah. Suppose some work where administrate all stop that's all the straight team work below all. Look out in man must stop. Look out in workman. Look give him work. Planting lo town all stop. All like making one something lo town. All suppose them. Police stop all making or run we go police run him now. I'm all savile this line all stop us. Police stop now all making. All stop. Now lo here lo place. All suppose them. Me probably squad stop. So when something we like making, all savile maski. Me probably making me a low change. So we'll squad stop now. All back come no kote me plan this like kind.
Obviously, the law and order question goes across the community. There are many agencies. We've discussed the police. We looked at the village courts. So there's a lot of people involved in trying to resolve these issues. Now, we're coming to a close, and I'll just go around the table. We're not going to solve the law and order issue in this country today, but what are some of the take-home things we can do? Obviously, we've got some great programs there in Madang. There's a lot of improvement that still needs to be done. The fact that you're assessing young policemen and women who are now trying to enter the force. All of these different activities, some of the legislative things that the government is doing to help women and children. What more can we do? What are some positives here?
An initiative that we sort of got off the ground, it never quite took off through Guinea was that we trained some of our officers to be court officials. They could appear in court on behalf of young people and provide an alternative sentencing for young people because as we all know, I mean, probably say our biggest criminal college is Bomana, and you don't really want to send young people there. So we thought it would be, if we could appeal to the magistrate or the judge and say, look, Your Honour, don't send this kid to jail, give him to us, and we'll run him through the mill in our life skills programs, try and find him some training, try and find him a job, and report back to you in a certain period of time. And I thought that would have been a worthwhile initiative to help young people in the community because sending them to jail isn't always the solution.
AFP, you've been here.
Yes.
Your observations, ways forward?
Alan, I'd say the thing we need to do now is focus on the stuff that's working. The clip that we just saw demonstrates community involvement in the village courts and results. And as Wallace mentioned earlier, there are luminaries in the police force. There are good officers that are doing good work and we need to recognise that and focus on those achievements and build on those achievements. The Australian Aid Program is very active in this space. We've talked a lot about family sexual violence and the Australian Aid Program is very committed to addressing support for the FSVUs in the police. Also other things like House Ruth and House Clare, the City Mission, and support for the village courts. So the broader Australian aid program is doing wonderful work, and we need to focus on that and acknowledge that progress is being made. Sure, there are issues, absolutely. There wouldn't be 73 AFP officers in PNG if it was all fine. So we acknowledge that. But we have to move forward and we have to look at the successes, and there are many of those, and build on that and progress forward. That's the work that I do. It is challenging, there's no doubt about that, but there are ways forward, and it's a great privilege for me to have this job and this role and to work with some of those great officers and see those results. And I'd be very happy to talk to you in 26 weeks when those recruits finish that new program at Bamana and just see what product we've delivered there.
That's something to look forward to, and on behalf of the people of Papua New Guinea, thank you to the Australian Federal Police and the Australian government for your involvement.
Thank you.
Wallace, closing.
At the general level, I would still stress for quality of leadership in the enforcement agencies to make sure that the right thing is done, making sure that there is accountability and governance processes within the hierarchy wherever you are. I mean, wherever it is in terms of that, I think that needs to be, it wasn't mentioned around here in terms of the internal systems of doing things, but I think that needs to be highlighted as well too. And the very, very important thing that we have seen in the short videos and things is really partnership and self-disciplined, self-discipline in terms of individual officers who are out there. What can we learn, like what Alan here is saying, what can we learn from those good officers who are doing things out there, and then maybe promoting those things so that other people can replicate those good activities or good intentions. And so partnership and collaboration with community, I think, will go a long way. And I would really stress that point, because communities, even we have to realize that police and the others, they have limitations in terms of their capacity constraints and things, and they can't be able to do those things that they are supposed to do. But with in terms of partnerships and collaboration with the business community, with the community itself, I think we can achieve things. So I think that needs to be that building of relationships and understanding the fact that you cannot do it alone. Law and order is everyone's business. So it has to be a collaborated effort, and partnership is the way to go.
Thank you, Wallace. Coming to you now, Commander. You do a lot of good work in Padang there, and no one is going to deny the fact that the police need to do a lot of work. But what do you think in terms of what more can you do in restoring your relationship with the community you're supposed to serve as police officers?
Well, thank you, Alan. For the constabulary, we have a big challenge ahead of us. The way forward, I believe, is for us to work in partnership with the communities that we swore an oath to protect and serve, and that's very important. And on the other hand, I'd like to make a mention with regard to what Mr. Kon has mentioned with regard to juveniles. The constabulary has taken the juvenile justice policy on board. And I'd like to thank the management for, certain provinces that were selected, and we built facilities in the provinces. I believe it's Medang, Mount Hagen, and Kokopo, where we built a new cell block for juveniles and females.
Thank you, Commander. Last words, Martin?
There are lessons that we can all take off from this program about practical things that can be done, and let's all also worry about the systemic issues which will really need long-term political commitment.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, all our viewers out there, and of course the live audience. That's all we have time for today. Please join me in thanking our guests. David Kon from the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce. Sylvester Kalau, the Provincial Police Commander of Madang. Yakam from the CIMC. Assistant Commissioner of Police, Australian Federal Police, Alan Scott. And of course, the colorful Martin Namarong from the Namarong. To all of you in the community out there, remember, policing, law and order is everybody's business. It's not only for the police, it's not only for the judicial system, it's also for you in the community. Let's work together with the police and improve our law and order situation. Join us next time on Tanim Graun. Na tingim, tok tok long you by Tanim Graun.
Thank you.